Hello everyone, my name is Janet and I live in the northern suburbs of Brisbane, in Nundah. Nundah is an Aboriginal name meaning waterholes or lagoons. Before I begin to tell you this story, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Turrbal people who are the traditional custodians of the land where I live. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all other First Australians viewing this presentation. I also advise these viewers that this presentation may contain images of people who are no longer living. My education about our nation's first people began in a Year 4 classroom in a small country town in Queensland back in the 1970s. Then I learned of tall ships sailing treacherous seas, the plight of convicts and the injustice of their incarceration for crimes as minor as stealing bread. I was directed to admire our first settlers for the endurance with which they battled the harshness of this land and climate. The tales I was told included descriptions of the first Australians as natives, whose lifestyle was primitive. The use of these words incited fear in me as a little girl, and shamefully somehow aided my innocent acceptance of their enslavement and the brutality of Europeans towards them. There was no mention of Aboriginal people defending their country, or of Australian heroes like Nundah. The first Australians in this folklore were virtually invisible and seemed insignificant in my primary school Australian history education. A little bit of probing into my local history recently taught me that Nundah was densely populated by Aboriginal people prior to the invasion of Europeans. So with a cognizance of my white skin and privilege, and an ever-increasing sense of humility and shame, I headed out into this vast concrete community to see what evidence of this I could find. Many hours of wandering around revealed that here too, in 2018, the first occupiers of this land seem invisible. Nundah is an epicentre for infrastructure. It's not easy to wander aimlessly around this suburb, as routes for pedestrians are directed by pathways, signage and authoritative fencing. Nundah is a hub for transport and commerce. I find this curious because this very area was a significant coastal trade route for its first inhabitants as well. It's not that Nundah doesn't acknowledge its history on the streets. There are expensive monuments in prominent places marking the arrival of the first settlers, and also heroes of World War I. There are streets and a tunnel named after prominent first settlers. Sadly, Nundah insults the land with its concrete buildings, bitumen roads, shiny signage and high-density housing. Though with effort one can find the odd street lined by native trees and patches of parkland, it is blaringly obvious that the significance of land and country has been lost in Nundah to European values of commerce, convenience and greed. I did find one hidden treasure on my walk about Nundah. A quiet stroll by the nudgy waterholes led me to a Bora ring, a sacred site. As a white woman, it's not for me to know the detail of what has taken place on this ground, but I can stand and acknowledge the need for reverence and respect. Respect for this beautiful land and country, and for its first peoples and their culture.